the years leading up the years leading up to the war.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Malcolm Campbell. I'm Vice President of Research here at University of Guelph. We welcome you all here this morning to this service of remembrance. Ask at this moment, if you haven't done so already, that you silence your mobile phones for the duration of the service. As we start here today, we remember that we are on traditional territory that has been occupied by millennia, oftentimes by people who have not ceded their territory. Today, we are on the traditional territory of the Attawandaron people, the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We remember this traditional territory, that of the Attawandaron, and the dish with one spoon covenant that binds us to this land. We remember the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Métis, Inuit, and other indigenous neighbors that live here together with us, living and working. We remember them and this traditional territory as a means by which to rebuild relationships through the process of truth and reconciliation. It's appropriate that we remember that we are in traditional territory at a time that we double down, if you will, on remembrance. We often take for granted here in Canada the Canadian values and institutions, our freedom to participate in cultural and political events, and our right to live under a government of our own choice is just a fact. The Canadians who went off to war in distant lands went in the belief that the values and beliefs enjoyed by Canadians were being threatened. They truly believed that without freedom, there can be no ensuing peace, and without peace, no enduring freedom. By remembering their service and their sacrifice, we recognize the tradition of freedom these men and women fought to preserve. They believed that their actions in the present would make a significant difference in the future. But it is up to us, to remember to ensure that their dream of peace is realized. On Remembrance Day, we acknowledge the courage and sacrifice of those who served their country and acknowledge our responsibility to work for the peace they fought hard to achieve. We acknowledge that war is not something that is isolated in the past, and that today's service may provoke strong feelings around violence, grief, and loss. If at any point you are struggling with today's content, please feel free to step out at any time. Supports will be made available to you if needed. If you are able, please rise now and join the choir in the singing of the national anthem.
He
I'm especially pleased this morning to acknowledge the active military service members and veterans joining us here today and offer a particularly special welcome to World War II veteran Ross C. Morton, father of Department of Sociology and Anthropology, Associate Professor Mavis Morton, right here in the front row. Mr. Morton first came to Guelph as a young recruit to receive training at the wireless school that had been established on campus, literally right across the road from where we are right now. I'd ask now that you please turn your attention to the screen for a recorded interview with Mr. Morton, reflecting on his experience in the Air Force.
The years leading up to the war had quite an effect on my life. I was born in 1925. The Great Depression started in 1929. I was the youngest of a family. None of my siblings could get jobs off the farm. I was a farm kid. And the newspapers were filled with articles of the rise of Hitler in Germany. So all you heard about in the news was doom and gloom. My brother, older brother, had joined the Navy, and he was serving in the North Atlantic on destroyers. I was working at the shipyards in Kingston, Ontario, before I joined the Air Force there. I had years I could have waited, but it was just something I wanted to do. And the earliest you could join at that time was 17 and a half, and I was either 17 and a half to the day or the day after that I arrived at the station. I was trained as a wireless air gunner. The first thing you do once airborne was let out about 50 feet of wire by hand from a reel, and then using a key and Morse code, contact a station. Once you finished training in Canada and you arrived in England, you were assigned to an operational training unit, and that's where your crew was formed. Our particular crew, the crew I was in, had a Welsh gunner, an Australian mid-upper, and a Cockney mechanic, and the rest of us were Canadians. There wasn't a complete separation between training and going to the squadrons because the need of the squadrons were quite high, so oftentimes they would borrow from the training units to the Bay of Biscay or to look for submarines or drop pamphlets to the French or participate in a full-fledged bombing run with the squadrons. So they were playing a role even in the training end. There was 5,729 airmen killed strictly with the training. There were 73 planes shot down by intruders over the training fields. In the underground in London, I found it quite a stirring sight to see double-decker bucks strung along the underground, and families who had bombed out houses trying to get their children to bed and hanging on to dolls or toys as if they'd been in their own cozy little house. That stuck with me. And I was in London when the war, when it was announced that the war was over. And it was a joyous time.
I know it's supposed to be a solemn day, but we have members of the service here with us, and of course, Mr. Morton himself, and it seems only appropriate to me that even at this solemn time that we collectively acknowledge the contribution that these great women and men have made for our freedom here in Canada. During the next song, the procession party will collect the Rose Bowl, and wreaths from the dais right here beside me and proceed to the chapel at the back of the hall. Participants include representatives of the U of G faculty, staff, alumni, friends of the university, campus police, members of our local regiments, and veterans. The last post, the minute of silence and reveille, will follow once the procession has returned from the chapel. Please stand if you are able during the laying of the wreaths.
Please be seated. Good morning. I'm the Reverend Dr. John Walsh and a faculty member at the University of Guelph. We are a diverse community and a gathering of many faiths, and some whose view of the world does not include a belief in the divine at all. Nevertheless, we are united, we are of one mind in our shared desire for peace. The human heart yearns always for peace, for the joyous time Mr. Morton named so movingly in his video. The human heart yearns for peace, a peace that sometimes must be won at a terrible cost. And so, lest we ever forget the frightful cost of war, we surround ourselves and build monuments to the grim price of peace. The National Aboriginal Veterans Monument, the National War Memorial, the Animals in War Memorial, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. They all serve to remind us of what others have sacrificed on our behalf. To those who have made that supreme sacrifice, we rightly owe acts of devout and continuing remembrance. But even more so, we surely owe them our ongoing commitment to build a just world, a peaceful world worthy of their sacrifice. From our veterans here today, we beg your understanding. You have kept war from our shores, and the fortunate among us do not know war. Thus, we cannot understand, can never understand the challenges you have and sometimes continue to face. We have not borne your burdens. We have not kept the vigil you have kept for us. We therefore can never find the right words. There are not sufficient words, so we can only offer you our humble and always inadequate thanks. For those who serve today in the face of danger in distant lands, and for those who train, ready to defend our freedom, for those University of Guelph students serving in our armed forces, serving scholars, for all of you, all in uniform, we hope and pray that you can pass your lives in the full enjoyment of the same peace you safeguard for us. Leaving this hall of remembrance today, we will pass two soldiers of the 11th Field Regiment, Royal Canadian Artillery, two members also of our own university family, as they keep faithful watch over the memorial to their fallen comrades, and we see them at their solemn duty. Let us contemplate truly the cruel and pitiless human cost of war and recommit ourselves to the work of peace. And we pray that, though they stand ever ready, never shall the need arise. Amen. Rabbi Rafi Steiner of the Multi-Faith team will now recite a poem for peace by Wisława Szymborska.
A poem by Wisława Szymborska. The End and the Beginning. After every war, someone has to clean up. Things won't straighten themselves up after all. Someone has to push the rubble to the sides of the road so the corpse-filled wagons can pass. Someone has to get mired in scum and ashes, sofa springs, splintered glass, and bloody rags. Someone must drag in a girder to prop up a wall. Someone must glaze a window, rehang a door. Photogenic it's not, and takes years. All the cameras have left for another war. We'll need bridges back and new railway stations. Sleeves will go ragged from rolling them up. Someone, broom in hand, still recalls how it was. Someone else listens and nods with unsevered head. But already there are those nearby starting to mill about who will find it dull. From out of the bushes sometimes someone still unearths rusted out arguments and carries them to the garbage pile. Those who knew what was going on here must make way to those who know little and less than little, and finally as little as nothing. In the grass which has overgrown causes and effects, someone must be stretched out, blade of grass in his mouth, gazing at the clouds.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Steiner. Some of you will have noticed this morning that we've done our service in a slightly different order, that we had the last post, a moment of silence, and now some words to reflect upon. We'll now return to our trumpeter for the Reveille. Thank you all for making the time to join us here today as we remember those who have served our country, both in the past and currently and in the future. And it is because of the sacrifices that have been made in the past that we enjoy the freedoms that we have today. Please remember that there are services on campus available today to support you if you are struggling with the nature of today's service here, or any other mental health issues. Reach out to someone. Students are encouraged to visit the student wellness services in the J.T. Powell building. Staff and faculty, you're encouraged to reach out to your employee assistance program or human resources. There's one final song from our choir today, and then there will be a formal procession out. You are welcome to remain in the hall to reflect and leave as you are ready. And I know from past experience that our choir puts a lot of effort into today's service. The song that they'll finish with today by Paul Gross is one of the authors of that particular song, the writer of that song. Some of you may know him from Due South, but also a very serious actor and musician. A fantastic song to cement today's remembrance experience. A song that was taken from the soundtrack of the movie Passchendaele, which recalls a time of immense sacrifice by Canadians in the interest of freedom. I can think of no more appropriate way to end today's service. Thank you again for joining us.
Lieutenant D.